The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Roots Revelation.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. This Friday. Happy Friday. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. It is April 3rd. All right. Thanks for joining me today. Top stories today. Attorney General Pam Bondi is ousted by Trump. Todd Blanche takes the reins of the Justice Department, at least in the interim. There is some talk about Lee Zeldin taking over, possibly Harmeet Dillon, which I think would be a great choice, or even Ron DeSantis. So we got that coming up. We also are going to be talking about Iran, of course. The war in Iran continues unabated, and there is some issue. People are still hand-wringing and clutching their pearls regarding what's going to happen with the war. Donald Trump says 2 or 3 weeks. He originally said 6 weeks. So he's right on schedule as far as that's concerned. I'm not really, am I worried? I don't like war. So of course I'm worried. It's destabilizing. Obviously the markets say so. Oil industry says so. I don't like it, but he said 6 weeks. We're going to hope in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We will know by the end of April if Donald Trump has been, consumed by the dark forces of United States politics or not. We'll see. So we got that coming up and a lot more news, over 31 headlines to get through. I should do a count here and see. 39 headlines. So we got quite a bit to get through today. So let's get started. All right. Washington Post. Story number 1 here. Trump heralds regime change, but Iran's leaders remain hardliners. The president says the country's surviving leaders are more reasonable, but assassinations have left an emboldened government driving a hard bargain, officials say. We're going to get to what's his name? Kazani. What's being reported out there in the alternative media, let's say, okay, is this guy, Karazi, excuse me, I said Kazani, Kamal Karazi, that he was the former Iranian foreign minister. So he's not the current foreign minister, and people are surmising that he was the one holding negotiations with the U.S. and that Israel took him out because Israel doesn't want negotiations. I mean, I don't have any problem with that speculation, but that's what it is. What we do know is that the Iranians are not backing down by their actions. What Trump says, whatever it is, that's whatever he says, but we don't know that to be true. Are the Iranians suing for peace or a ceasefire or some sort of negotiations? Perhaps, maybe not. But we're still in very serious territory. We won't really know till mid-April what's going to happen. All right, enough with me blathering on. Let's get on with the news. Story number 2. Zero Hedge. Abu Dhabi halts operations at main gas plant after falling debris from Iranian strike. Operations at the Habshan, the UAE's massive onshore gas processing hub operated by ADNOC Gas in Abu Dhabi, were halted on Friday after local authorities said a fire broke out at a facility due to falling debris from a successful interception by air defense systems. So it is the fog of war, and there's a lot of propaganda going on. We don't know if this gas facility was actually hit by Iranian missiles or it was falling debris. Iran seems to be using more and more cluster munitions, which means even if it's hit, those cluster bombs go out, and those bomblets and can strike a number of different things. So that one of the falling pieces of debris could have been a cluster bomb. We don't know. So we've seen some serious, very serious obfuscation of the facts by the U.S. and its allies. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the live stream. I'm sick today. You can obviously tell by my voice. So I just a quick note on that is there's some weird shit going around, because this is very weird for a cold or anything else, because usually incubation period for a cold is about 3 days. So you'll come in contact with somebody that's sick, that's spreading disease, and it'll take about 3 days. I came in contact with somebody who was sick, and within 12 hours, I was sick or starting to get sick, which is very, very strange. Also, I've never been sick like this before. It's very low grade. It's not debilitating, so you could go out and do stuff, and you're obviously getting other people sick. It's obviously very transmissible, but I've never felt like this before. It's just strange irritation in the sinuses and the chest. Not similar to any other cold. Usually when I get a cold, it's like a scratchy thing in the back of my throat, which I didn't have. So this is, I would contribute it to a manufactured nouveau virus. Who knows? I just found it weird that it's very transmissible. And then there was no incubation period. I literally came in contact with somebody, and within 12 hours, I was starting to get sick. Very, very strange. All right, enough about me. Let's get back to the stories. Story number 3. Axios, U.S. bombs Iran civilian infrastructure for first time after Stone Age's threat. And then just the news, Trump warns Iran to make a deal as country's largest bridge tumbles from U.S. airstrike. Trump shared a 10-second clip of the ruins of the B1 highway bridge in a post on Truth Social. The bridge was considered an important link between Iran's capital, Tehran, and the western city of Karaj. The biggest bridge in Iran comes tumbling down, never to be used again. Much more to follow, he wrote. It is time for Iran to make a deal before it's too late, and there's nothing left of what still could become a great country. Absolutely agree there. Excuse me, I can barely even talk. Excuse me. All right, moving on with the stories there. We got another Zero Hedge article. Iran attacks Kuwaiti desalinization plant, bringing Gulf water supplies into focus just 3 days into Operation Epic Fury. We pointed out that what may be a more consequential second-order risk, arguably far more important than the risk of data centers getting bombed, are the desalinization plants around the Gulf, because they don't have any fresh water. I'll just give you a picture here of a desalinization plant. And even more importantly, the Gulf has no permanent rivers. I don't know what they mean by that, the Gulf. Regions to the west and east of the Persian Gulf, Iran particularly, and Saudi Arabia, conversely, don't have any major rivers or fresh water. Iran has some, there are some, but no permanent rivers. And this map shows the major rivers there, obviously into the Persian Gulf. The big feeder is the Euphrates River as well. The Tigris is also in there as well, but it's not as big as the Euphrates. But Iran and Saudi Arabia are largely desert countries, and permanent, when they say permanent rivers, they mean there's, during the rainy season, there are rivers. Obviously, if you've ever lived in a desert before, you have these big washes, these, uh, they're washes really, and they're dry most of the year, but during the rainy season, they're not. Now my stream is hanging up again. Yeah, this is really good. Wall Street Journal, Iran beefs up defenses, recruits children as it prepares for ground war. Iran promises an all-out fight if the U.S. invades, including new attacks on the Gulf, which we've seen. Yeah, I should have cleaned up my hard drive because I don't know why it's hanging up again. I tried to do some minor stuff, but getting back to the news. So that Wall Street Journal is really important. Beefs up defenses, recruits children as it prepares for ground war. It's all concerning because when you start to look at the facts, you're looking at things that I just can't get over my feed. And then it always freezes on me, making like a stupid face. So I'll try not to do that. Zero Hedge. We get into the next article here. Zero Hedge allegations of Pentagon casualty cover up. Says The Intercept. Since the start of Operation Epic Fury, approximately 303 U.S. service members have been wounded. That's a casualty is somebody who's killed and wounded. So I can no longer fight or be in the fight. 13 U.S. servicemen have been confirmed killed. Almost 750, says The Intercept, U.S. troops have been wounded or killed in the Middle East since October 2023. An analysis The Intercept has found, but the Pentagon won't acknowledge it. I mean, that's neither here nor there. The U.S. CENTCOM casualty figures do not appear not to include 200 sailors treated for smoke inhalation or otherwise injured due to a fire that raged aboard the USS Gerald R4 before it limped out to Saudo Bay, Greece for repairs. Apparently, it's returning to theater as we speak. CENTCOM did not reply to close to a dozen requests for clarification on the casualty count. Related information sent this week. I mean, The Intercept, since Glenn Greenwald left, there hasn't been much, of anything. What they're doing is just attacking the Pentagon, the president, who aren't really providing detail, but that's, because of war, that's what they do. They don't want to admit, they're losing or whatever. So yesterday I had some problems with the feed hanging up. It's hanging up again. The recording seemed to come out fine. But this might just be my feed, so not sure what's going on. Like I said, I have a bunch of taking up space. I have a bunch of videos on there, and now it's just I can't catch a break. I invested in new equipment to kind of avoid this, but this is happening anyway. I have to, over the weekend, I'm going to have to do a double check and see what the hell's going on. It's hard to troubleshoot stuff when you're going live, and I thought I'd fixed most of it, but that's not what's happened. Now it's even worse than it was yesterday. Moving on, story number 8, Fox News, what B-52 bombers bring to Iran fight and what it means for the war now. Retired Air Force colonel says the U.S. is using a majority of its combat-capable bombers to sustain the fight. The bomber, first used during the Cold War and flown for over 70 years, allows the U.S. to expand the pace and flexibility of its strike, unlike earlier standoff attacks, mostly used by fighter jets. Focused on fixed targets, the B-52s can remain over the battlefield and hit multiple targets in a single mission, including mobile systems and hardened sites, says Mark Gunzinger, retired Air Force colonel and former B-52 command pilot. The aircraft carrier can carry up to 70,000 pounds of ordnance, more than any other bomber in the U.S. arsenal, and deliver a mix of precision-guided bombs and long-range cruise missiles in a single mission. The key about this is that the B-52 goes up on its mission and can hover over there and strike a multiple targets, unlike a lot of these fighter jets that go in, hit one target, come back, and then go back out. I am just It seems I am cursed by the internet people not to get this podcast out. I am constantly afflicted with technical issues, not of my making, that I have to deal with here. I mean, my hard drive is not even close. I have anything on my hard drive it's interfering with kind of doing this. And as I mentioned previously, I have all these apps open that I need to go ahead and do this. Moving on with the story, though, if you really want to devastate Iran's ability to continue to launch missiles and drones, you would want to use these bombers to do that. And that's exactly what they're doing. And I tried to tell people that is that the B-52s come in. That means it's a shift in the war from interdiction of radars and anti-aircraft batteries to going after ordnance, launchers, missiles. We saw those bunker busters just 2 days ago. And hopefully, and what I was being told was that they were also concentrating in the heights over the Hormuz Strait. And there was a French, I'm going to get to the fact that there was a French tanker that was able to transit the Hormuz. You know, I'm gonna see if I can't fix this now. I constantly say that because this is hanging up way worse than yesterday. But I don't think it's that. I think it's crap. See if this works. Might take a little bit, and it might actually. Thanks for bearing with me. It should take about 6 minutes, it says. All right, moving on to the next story here. National Review. Donald Trump lays the groundwork for declaring victory and going home in Iran. Now, everybody was kind of, on left and the right, were poo-pooing Trump's speech. Was there more information? People that are following the conflict say, no, of course there wasn't. But he was trying to communicate to people that aren't following the news very closely. And, okay. The issue is whether or not we're successful in prosecuting war against Iran. It's the outcome that people are worried about, obviously. Zero Hedge has the headline, Trump says a little more time needed to open Hormuz, take the oil, and make a fortune as Israel hit hard during Passover. Israel was hit mostly by Hezbollah rockets fired out of Lebanon. 140 rockets were fired during Jewish Passover with sustained barrages hitting Israel. And the difference between a rocket and a missile is rockets don't have guidance. So you shoot rockets and they just hit where they hit, while missiles have sophisticated guidance systems. A French-owned vessel becomes the first Western-linked European ship to transit Hormuz since war began, signaling a tentative thaw after weeks of near-total shipping freeze. And also, and this is one of the reasons that certain European countries were like, we're not getting involved. And so that might very well be likely why the French-owned vessel was able to transit the strait. Now, did they pay Iran a toll? Was there a toll paid? We don't really know. Also, Iran targets Gulf infrastructure, including a Kuwaiti desalination plant, which I talked about, while the UAE defenses intercept large-scale missile and drone waves at energy facilities face disruption. So we're not sure whether there was an interruption there or not. whether they said one of their gas plants was affected by fallen debris. We don't really know if that was not a cluster munition, a direct hit, or what exactly they're talking about. I've had it with technology lately. Last week, I went on a rant about Instagram and social media in general, and what pops up on your feeds and what doesn't. I had an issue with Twitter back in the day where I just wanted who I follow chronologically in my feed, and they never let that happen. And then they went to just recommended stuff that they kept feeding me, which is making me angry. And then Elon Musk bought it, and so now I can get recommended, but I can also get who I follow chronologically. And I mentioned last week about forget Instagram. I mean, you click on one thing, and that's all you get fed now. And I'm not even going to go into it anymore. It's just, I don't want an algorithm. And I don't do that either with YouTube. People complain about YouTube because they get recommended stuff. I just follow the same thing. I have a feed, and whoever I follow pops up in there chronologically. But now YouTube has changed that, and they have all this recommended shit up front. I don't want what's recommended. I want what I want. Is the content providers I like. I want their latest stuff to pop up, and so I could watch it. I don't need algorithm recommendations. Real Clear Politics has a story. Well, the commentary, I should say, good information is hard to find by J. Peter Zane. Barack Obama once pointed out, many people, they're just misinformed. Indeed, they just don't have enough information, or they're not professionals at sorting out all the information that's out there. And so our political process gets skewed. And I have to agree to that to a certain point. Now, many people, he says, are just misinformed. Now, what misinformation is if you're getting wrong information. But then in the very next sentence, he goes, they just don't have enough information. Well, that's not misinformed. That means you're uninformed. There's a difference. There's a difference between uninformed, misinformed, and disinformed. So most people are uninformed, which means they're not very well informed. They just don't, most people don't read the news. They don't get the information. They might watch a little news on TV. And if you're watching MS Now or any of those crap stations, you're getting disinformed, which the way they feed you the information in such a way is to project a narrative upon you, and you take that as fact, blah, blah, blah. But what I want to bring up here is what he says is they're not professionals at sorting out all the information that's out there. So our political process gets skewed. He says our. I don't say our. So I am a professional at sorting out all the information that's out there, and had been for 30 years. More than that. I mean, I started reading hard news when I was 8 years old. And so that's what I do here, is professionally sort out all the information that's out there. And so your political process doesn't get skewed. The commentary goes on to say their sheer number of facts has always outstripped the mind's ability to sift and sort them. Progress is real. We know far more than we used to, but there is also far more to know. So we live in comfort and the same general state of confusion. And perhaps humanity's greatest achievement, our ancient ancestors created narratives to try to make sense of it all. They picked out the facts that really mattered, the good information, and bundled them into stories. This feat provided us with the one thing we craved, even more than love, certainty. As storytellers sold themselves as truth tellers. Well, there's yes and no. That's why journalists write stories, not reports, is because if you put it in the context of a story that people are more open to ingest, then you're better at what you do. So, of course, when you're a journalist, you're writing a story with the facts in it. But this commentary confuses narrative with journalism. All right, which are two different things. Now, grand narratives and narratives is what people used to do in the storytelling tradition back in antiquity, where you would tell a parable or a story or something, and there would be the moral to the story, or the lesson would achieve what you're trying to do. And nowadays, we're talking about facts and the ability, as they say, the ability to allow the facts to present themselves. Let's see if that fixed it. And that brings us to our next story. Al Jazeera, Iran's ex-foreign minister, Karazi, gravely wounded in an attack on his home. Former Iranian foreign minister Kamal Karazi has been seriously wounded in an apparent assassination attempt that killed his wife as the United States-Israeli strikes continue to pound Iran for a fifth week. All right, let's separate the truth from, or the expected truth from what they're saying here. And this is Al Jazeera. So the U.S., at least is what they're saying, and the rules of engagement, we're not allowed to carry out assassination on civilian government officials. So it's more than likely Israel that's doing it. So for Al Jazeera to say the United States / Israeli strikes, they should just put it on Israel. Iranian media on Thursday reported that Karazi home in Tehran was targeted the previous day in an airstrike. The official was hospitalized with serious injuries, according to the newspaper Sarg, Etamad, and Ham Mehan. What we have seen looks like an assassination attempt against the former foreign minister, Kamal Karazi. We don't know why he's being targeted. He has been gravely wounded, and his wife was killed. So the reports say that he was the one conducting the negotiations with the United States. We don't know that to be true because he's not part of the government. He's the ex-foreign minister. So we don't know if he's kind of like a part of a government in waiting to take over or whatever. But we'll see. Getting to our next story here. Trump fires Pam Bondi. Yeah, I don't know if it's just with my. In any case, CNN Politics. Trump fires Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Pam Bondi is a great American patriot and loyal friend who faithfully served as my Attorney General over the past year. Says Donald Trump. Pam did a tremendous job in overseeing a massive crackdown in crime across our country, with murders plummeting to their lowest level since 1900. Fantastic. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. Like I said, this weekend I'm going to have to try to figure out what's happening here. The camera I use professionally for other things, and I don't think it's the camera. I just think it's the feed. And whether it's just Rumble or because it was really almost unwatchable yesterday and it's worse today. So I don't know what's happening. Zero Hedge DOJ sues the New Jersey town over a natural gas ban. Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Morris Township in New Jersey over its ban on natural gas and other fossil fuels in newly constructed buildings, the department said in April 1st statement. So who knows if this has anything to do with Pam Bondi getting tossed if they're going to be more aggressive. Now, the Justice Department has been great in following up on state crime, etc. But what the electorate, the people that voted for Trump, were most concerned about was what was happening with prosecutions for Democrat Democrat criminals, Democrats who were involved, conspirators in what the Democrats were up to during the Biden administration, but also, the Epstein associates wasn't properly prosecuted. But that just goes on to say that how serious our system is undermined by corporate fascists and communists. And it's really the corporate fascists that develop communism at all, altogether. The ban drives up energy costs for everyday. So the ban drives up energy costs for everyday American consumers and weakens our national energy dominance. Such policies reflect the radical left effort to outlaw federally regulated gas stoves, furnaces, water heaters, dryers, and other appliances that American families rely on daily to cook their meals and heat their homes. Okay. So what happened here is Mikey Sherrill became governor of New Jersey. Of course she did, because they wouldn't let, it's another supermajority. They won't let a Republican take hold there. And before them, Phil Murphy was also equally as bad. And we have this happening all over the place in big Democratic states like New York, where they just decide, we're just outlawing that because our view of the world is that we're destroying it with burning fossil fuels, the cheapest source of energy for Americans. So moving on with the stories here. One American News, FBI arrests couple in connection with $7 million hospital scam. 13 others swept up in Southern California crackdown. Washington Times, 8 arrests made in federal crackdown on alleged healthcare fraud in Southern California. Federal officials on Thursday arrested 8 people they say were involved in various healthcare fraud schemes totaling $50 million in and around Los Angeles. 5 of these cases involved hospice care centers in the city of Glendale, Artesia, Tarzana, and Simi Valley in Los Angeles area that allegedly billed Medicare for patients who are not terminally ill and do not qualify for services, and in most cases are receiving kickbacks. Excuse me, I thought I had another hospice fraud. I think I got rid of it. Hospice fraud case. Fox News, Florida, Mississippi joins wave of states tightening voter citizenship rules. Mississippi Act takes effect on July 1st, while Florida's measure follows on January 1st, so that would be after the midterms. Under both laws, voters will be required to provide citizenship documents such as birth certificates, passport, and naturalization certificates if local officials challenge their eligibility after cross-referencing databases for voter registration applications. If individuals fail to provide the required proof of citizenship after being flagged, both states are required to remove them from the voter registration rolls. Good. Yeah, it's just, now it's completely hanging up. Many eligibility voters do have these documents and cannot obtain them for a variety of reasons, including because they were born without a birth certificate in a segregated South. Okay, hold on a second here. Yeah. What's segregated South? They were born in the segregated South, so that's over 70 years ago, right? Something like that, 50s. All right, let's say early 60s. So 40 years ago. They were born in the segregated South, so they can't. My thing is that you need documentation of who you are to live in modern society. Without a doubt. Why people wait till an election they want to vote in to get this stuff together. So you need to get your birth certificate. You need to get your social security number. You need to get driver's license. You need to get a passport if you're going to fly. All these things you should do. My brother was getting into an argument with his son just recently. His son's like, I don't have any of my documentation. Well, you need to have it. I mean, and the son is not 8 years old. He's 32. Under the law, the IDs, no, that's not where I left off. Or because their documents were destroyed in a hurricane, or because they can't afford hundreds of dollars it costs to replace them. Yeah, bullshit. Under the law, student ID and retirement community identifications no longer will be used as polling identifications. New driver's license must also reflect the citizenship status starting in July 2027. And there's more. Let's see if I can do this. This might help. However, it does not require local officials registering voters to run additional citizenship checks if applications do not provide a driver's license number on their voter application. While states like California and New York flood their voter rolls with illegal aliens, Mississippi will do the opposite and defend Americans' right to determine the outcome of elections. We will continue to do everything in our power to make it infinitely harder, with a goal to make it impossible to cheat in our elections. Next up, Just the News Democratic leaders sue Trump administration over president's mail-in voting executive order. The Democrat leader claimed the executive order, which Trump signed Tuesday, is unconstitutional interference in state power to regulate elections, and accused the president of trying to rewrite election rules for his own perceived partisan advantage. Yeah, I disagree. If you're a Democrat and you believe in the democratic process, then election integrity should be something you're striving for. They don't, which means they're not for democracy. They're actually just for cheating. The executive order directs the Department of Homeland Security, working with Social Security Administration, to compile lists of eligible voters nationwide and to seek to block the U.S. Postal Service from delivering absentee ballots to voters not on state-approved rolls. The order also calls for mail-in ballot envelopes with unique tracking barcodes and threatens to withhold federal funding from states and localities that refuse to comply. Not a doubt. As they should, because the problem is chain of custody. PJ Media Hollywood star Meryl Streep sparks debate over Save Act comments. Streep appeared on Stephen Colbert's late night show, which will end in a couple months, thank God for small miracles, and claimed that the SAVE Act will force married women to prove they are wrong in order to prove who they are in order to vote. This is what I understand. She doesn't understand, because that's not true. That's a Democrat talking point. Otherwise, when you get to the voting booth in November, you might be disqualified because your name on your birth certificate doesn't match the name on your voting rolls. The law requires all voters to prove their identity in order to both register to vote and cast a ballot. Lawmakers designed it to prevent illegal aliens from voting in elections. It's absurd to assume that this means that women who have experienced a name change are going to have difficulty registering to vote or casting a ballot. They simply have to prove their legal status in this country, and that's it, without a doubt. Post-millennial naked bike ride organizer slapped with child sex crime charges in Washington. Zachary Elijah Robertson of Benningham was taken into custody on March 10th on 2 felony counts of possession of child pornography. Investigators located approximately 25 nude images of prepubescent and pubescent girls on his laptop upon the execution of search warrant. He later allegedly confessed to downloading nude images of girls between the ages of 5 and 7 years old, according to court documents. Robertson was reported to authorities by his wife, who allegedly walked in on Robertson masturbating to the images on his laptop on March 6th. Police obtained a search warrant and arrested Robertson at his home days later. So his wife turned him in because it was jerking off to 5 or 7-year-old girls. What the fuck? You know, I could give an excuse for somebody who's looking at pornography and accidentally sees pornography of girls that might be 17 or 16, but they look like they're adults, whatever. But when you get to prepubescent girls, like I say, I'm not excusing that at all, but when you get to prepubescent girls are obviously children, it's another thing entirely. And that's why it's illegal. Angels and Demons documentary explores existence of supernatural beings. I was saying metaphysical yesterday. Investigating the Supernatural, Angels and Demons is a documentary that Bill Hollowell did with Jared Anderson for the Christian Broadcasting Network. They include the account of Bruce Van Natta, a former auto mechanic who was nearly crushed to death when a semi-truck fell on him during a 2006 repair. As he laid on the garage floor, he said he saw 2 enormous angels appear to touch his chest and restart his heart. Interesting. Vance, Vice President Vance, said he's obsessed with the federal government's UFO files and described aliens as demons. I don't know if they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway, but that's a longer discussion. Basically, what I believe is that, and as my wife and I often discuss, spirit creatures, and so they're entities, let's just say, and we don't know much about entities, what they are, but that can cross dimension travel, and are obviously real. Angels, people call them demons, but originally, if you read the book of Enoch, they're all angels. And so are all angels good? Angel has the term angel has the connotation of good, while demons have the connotation of bad. But apparently all angels are not good. And so that's where you get Satan or the devil or whatever. The 7 emanations, if you look into the occult. And that should be looked at. And where the term angel comes from is angle. And I'll get to that. It has to do with light and energy, and I'll get into that another time. All right, the Federalist, American Catholic renewal is a rejection of liberal modernity. Record numbers of Americans are converting to Catholicism this Easter, and they talk about why. Yeah, that's the feed is still hanging up. I don't know if the feed seems choppy to you. There's not much you can do about it now. This is a sort of an interesting story, though, because I went over this yesterday, and there was a story, I believe it was the Washington Post, why Gen Zers are flocking to Catholicism. Because if you're going to go all in, I guess, in Christianity, you're going to want the pageantry and the, I can't even think straight with this cold, the pageantry and all the ritual. You could go into Catholicism, but my research has shown is that Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, actually came out of the Church of Saturn, and what they did when they did the switch over to Christianity, they just put Christianity over the existing churches, which at the time were, and so that's where you get the black robes and everything from Catholicism. And some of the ritual and stuff that already existed pre-Christianity before Constantine brought the Catholic Church Christianity into the Roman Empire. I'm fading fast already. Next story up here is the post-millennial Providence mayor blames right-wing billionaires for outrage over removing Irina Zarutska mural. Zarutska's killing was distorted by erroneous tweet by our president, and then a movement was funded by some right-wing billionaires, and it was found our way in our community. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley, this guy's the worst too, an alien, has claimed that the mural in his city depicting slain Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutsko, which is now set to be taken down, was not making the city stronger, more united community, and claimed that the outrage that followed the young woman's killing in North Carolina was funded by some right-wing billionaires and distorted by Trump. He claimed that the owner of the building who commissioned the piece did not understand the full context of this. You know, I don't believe that at all. What you have to understand is that whether or not the murderer muttered, "I killed that white bitch," that's what he's talking about. Whether or not that someone muttered, "I killed that white bitch." That has nothing to do with it. There was a mentally ill guy who had a long rap sheet, was criminally insane, and was released multiple times by the local government, and then went on to stab this innocent girl. And there was no confrontation between the two, stabbed her from behind in the neck when she died. Just the News, Singham uses extensive CCP-aligned network in China as he finances global Marxist influence. Just the News investigation has detailed how a wealthy Marxist activist, best known for funding of the global financial network, both inside the U.S. and around the world, has extensive ties to the Chinese Communist Party-linked organizations inside of China. Of course he does. China-based entrepreneur Neville Roy Singham lives and works in Shanghai, which the American businessman now calls home, where he runs a network of pro-CCP news sites and other China-linked endeavors. Singham, who told his ThoughtWorks tech company, who sold his ThoughtWorks tech company in 2017, used that money to fund openly communist endeavors worldwide. And the article inside of China, Singham and his network collaborate with an array of Chinese propaganda sites. Which brings us to Act Blue. The Federalists report Act Blue likely lied to Congress about illegal foreign donations, and its lawyers feared this privately. Act Blue told Congress in 2023 that it took multi-layered steps to root out illegal donations from foreign citizens, Chinese, that it turns out some of the steps described were not always followed. Act Blue Chief Executive Regina Wallace-Jones claimed in 2023 in a letter from Congress that Act Blue concluded multi-layered screenings and contributions that helped root out network from those overseas. The New York Times reported that such screenings claimed to have included processing of donations that came from foreign mailing addresses only if the donor had a U.S. passport number. Wallace-Jones also reportedly told Congress that Act Blue would refund donations to those who didn't provide a passport number, but Covington and Burling, the firm that represented Act Blue, found some of the steps were not always followed. Of course not. Just the News, story number 26, Mamdani lifts 3-year-old ban on having TikTok on New York City government devices. Under the new rules for TikTok use, city agencies must dedicate separate devices for the app that can't contain sensitive financial or taxpayer data or connect to internal computers, the agency said. The move is a reversal of Mayor Eric Adams' 2023 executive order banning TikTok, which came as the federal government and many U.S. states took similar steps to remove the app from the government-owned devices amid concerns its parent company, ByteDance, could also share users' personal data with the Chinese government. And their reasoning being is because the Chinese government spies on users of TikTok. And that's why they can't have it on government devices that contain sensitive information. And the federal government still bans it on devices for government employees. Post-millennial, Oregon released dozens of criminal illegal aliens from jail without notifying ICE. Well, why would they do that? ICE has lodged immigration detainers against more than 300 illegal immigrants who are currently in state custody. And we know what's happening there, right? Is this lesbian who's the governor of Oregon, doesn't care if people are criminals or if they're in the country illegally, They're just going to release them out into the public once again. And it's the soft on crime and the soft on immigration enforcement, that those two things together are devastating the citizenry of the country. Fox News: illegal migrant babysitter accused in 5-year-old attack now faces major charges. DHS officials call Argula Reynosa a pedophile, saying police asked ICE to arrest him as they built a case. The illegal immigrant from Guatemala is accused of sexually abusing a 5-year-old on Long Island, New York. The girl he was babysitting the girl and charged with rape. Carlos Arguello Reynosa is charged with predatory sex assault against a child, vaginal sexual contact with a child, sexual abuse, acting in a manner to injure a child, and resisting arrest. Reynosa, 27, has been babysitting the girl as a favor to her mother. When the mother returned home from work on February 1st, she discovered her daughter was bleeding, obviously from her vagina, prompting her to take her to the hospital, where the hospital reported the rape. Story number 29, ICE arrests Milwaukee mosque president over alleged terror ties, immigration fraud. Salar Sassour, 53, has been taken into custody earlier in the week. The Homeland Security said this Jordanian national with a prior conviction for throwing a Molotov cocktail at the homes of Israeli forces. He lied on his immigration application and became a green card holder under President Clinton, so he's been in the country for a while. Fox News: San Diego high school reverses student suspension over pro-ICE flyers it deemed harassment. Torrey Pines High School student was disciplined for posting flyers that read, "We love ICE, real Americans." I believe, the student said, "I believe in ICE's mission. I think we should enforce our immigration laws." Of course we should. I also want to provide an opposing view to the anti-ICE opinions that the majority of students, teachers, and administrators at Torrey Pines seem to have and often share. I want to show students that the issue isn't one-sided and their opinions are common and matter also. Without a doubt. If kids can leave class and leave campus as part of a walkout against ICE, then certainly the kids at a high school, this is an elementary school, can pose an opposing point of view. And of course, the high school has to be sued, right? Next article up from Fox News: Pete Hegseth signs memo opening door for troops to carry personal firearms on base. Hegseth cited recent tragedies for Fort Stewart, Holloman Air Force Base, and Pensacola Naval Air Station. Yeah, the Second Amendment says your right to bear arms, which means carry firearms. Next up, just the news. Trump places 100% tariff on brand name pharmaceuticals produced overseas. Despite being the world leader in research and development for most innovative pharmaceuticals, the United States is heavily reliant on imports, threatening to limit the United States' access to life-saving medication in the event of global supply chain disruption due to the geopolitical or economic disruptions. And this includes antibiotics. And the issue is that we don't produce medicines in this country. They're mostly produced in China, hence the 100% tariff. And if you keep thinking that Trump is a fascist, he's directly going against what the big pharma wants. And how can you be fascist? And particularly if you know anything about the global fascism network, there's certain industries that are, let's just say, anti-fascist, anti-socialist. The oil industry, the armament industry, obviously, and some others, beef industry, let's say, and other ones that are pro-communist, pharmaceutical industry. I think the tech industry is kind of on the fence. But there are other industries as well. But it's well known that the big pharma is pro-socialism. Next up, Fox News, GOP targets transgender animal testing and defund demand to NIH. The effort follows reports that the NIH granted over $584,000 for transgender animal mouse research that they thought was stopped. And then this grant was given. And so they want to claw that back. Good. I just posited maybe they were just going to test to see actually, if there are adverse effects, and then they could throw those back in the progressive's face and say, well, when you do this, this is actually what happens. It's dangerous. That's a legitimate scientific endeavor. If you want to find out that something's dangerous, you would do testing on it. New York Times, a liberal group warns that Trump could have 2 or more Supreme Court picks. If you think if Trump is willing to leave 2 or 3 justices he thinks are most loyal on the court in their 80s past when he leaves office, you're not paying attention. There is no way that Donald Trump and Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito would ever commit the fundamental miscalculation about power that we saw from Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Barack Obama. And the reasoning being is that they're in their 70s. If Trump leaves office, they're going to be going into their 80s. And presumably, if there's a Democratic president or Democratic administration after Trump leaves, then what we're going to find out is that then the Democrats get to pick the justices. And then you're going to have a liberal Supreme Court again, which isn't good. They're going to reverse everything that we just did. The Telegraph. Have mental health labels like ADHD and autism gone too far? Yes, they have. Some experts think so, and so does this broadcaster. A new report reveals skyrocketing autism and ADHD rates. Some experts believe self-diagnosis are overshadowing those who need real help. And before I just want a brief word on this, is the fact that they're overdiagnosed, but there's certain things that are causing kids to have bad mental health. Not just kids, but adults. I think we're being bombarded by chemicals and other things that are specifically leading to our intellectual decline. So if we're all intellectually inebriated or retarded, that we'd be more apt to rely on things like AI. Under the skin, Wall Street Journal, under the skin of America's humanoid robots, Chinese technology. Of course, Tesla and others have turned to suppliers in China for components in an industry seen as strategic by Washington and Beijing. My only comment on this is that we shouldn't do anything with China because they're supposed to be our adversary. So, but people in the corporate world often rely on communist regimes to supply slave labor and cheap electronic products, et cetera, and cheap technology. And one of the main reasons is economists once dismissed the AI job threat, but not anymore. Economists may have, but I never did. And they're saying that the corporate sphere never did either. Of course, for 2 years already, corporations have been admitting that the massive layoffs and job reductions are because of AI. Artificial intelligence hasn't disrupted the labor market. Come on. But they're increasingly convinced that it will. You just had Oracle lay off 60,000 people and said, we don't need you anymore. Among tech evangelists, I'm fading. I think we're at our last story here. It has become conventional. Oh, we have some other international news coming up. It has become conventional wisdom that artificial intelligence will rapidly reshape the labor market for better or for worse. Economists, however, have often discussed AI's impact with skepticism bordering on dismissiveness. Really? Rising unemployment among young college graduates, the result of high interest rates and a macroeconomic uncertainty, dire predictions of widespread job losses. You heard it here first. a failure to understand the lessons of the past and technological revolutions. Even the layoffs that companies themselves blamed on artificial intelligence were often chalked up to AI washing from executives who look for something to blame other than their own mismanagement. I don't know about that. Recently, however, the message from economists have undergone a subtle change. Most still do not see much evidence that AI is disrupting the job market, but they are starting to take seriously the possibility that it could someday be soon. If it does, they're worried the policymakers are not ready to respond. I don't think AI has hit the labor market yet. They're so stupid. And I don't think it's radically changed corporate productivity yet either, but I think it's coming. And I think this guy is wrong, Daniel Rock, is because the people have admitted, and then they're just out there saying, they're like, well, AI can write code better and faster. And to think that it's not disrupting the job market is just ignorant. That's the whole purpose. Last two stories here. PJ Media, China throws a petty tantrum over the Panama Canal, and Rubio isn't having it. The United States stands with the Panama Canal against any retaliatory actions against its sovereignty and will always support our partners in facing the bullying. The Chinese Communist kind of bulletin, and it talks about the two major ports in Panama, how they were owned by a Hong Kong subsidiary, Hutchinson Holding, which was actually the Communist Party, and that the U.S. went in and had Panama kick them out. Panama framed it as a domestic matter. The United States considered it a win. China threw a hissy fit and apparently plans to continue to do so. Now what we're seeing, those threats come to fruition in the form of unreasonable number of inspections and detentions of of vessels flying the Panamanian flag. Of 123 vessels detained in Chinese ports in March, 91 were from Panama. The remaining ships inspected were from a variety of other countries. Several of the Panama's ships were detained for multiple days. Yeah, because that's the way the Chinese communists work. They're bullies. I can't stand socialists. See, if you're free and everybody's free and you have free speech and everything's, I don't mean free as in value. I mean, you have the ability to do so. All of a sudden, and you're well informed, all of a sudden that the bullies are put back on their heels. And you should always intellectually prosecute that point, is that I'm informed, I'm willing to say my point, present my point of view, substantiated with facts, and that trumps your bullying bullshit. Zero Hedge Liberal Council in UK moves to ban intimidating national flags. Oxfordshire County Council is pushing a county-wide crackdown on the grassroots Raise the Colors campaign, which has been putting up Union flags and St. George crosses in public spaces as a straightforward show of patriotism. National symbols are now suspect. And we've had that here also. We've had that here with the Gadsden flag, or the Appeal to Heaven, Pine Tree, or 3%er or whatever. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, share the podcast. Sorry about if there are hang-ups happening here. It's a tech issue that I think I'll be able to address next time around. I just think it's the way the Mac uses the memory. And I just have an external hard drive, just put everything on there. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe. As I said, you're under attack psychologically, biologically. Stay hip to the trip. Join me every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live stream on Rumble. We're here for about an hour, go through about 30 stories. All right. Peace out. Respect. You're crazy.
crazy. I like you. But you're crazy.